to another episode of Home Sweet Home Cooking. I am your host, Rocky. My mom is pattering around the kitchen somewhere. We're back in her kitchen again. Today, we are cooking a simple meat and potato meal. Very simple. We're making this one, it's kind of a hash. My dad likes roast beef hash. Doesn't like corned beef hash, but he wants the roast beef. I've made this with hamburger. We're making it with venison today. You can use stew meat if you want. You can use chicken. I've made it in chicken plenty of times. Any meat, any potato. I prefer the Yukon Golds for the potato. There's going to be no amounts in this. It's going to be whatever you think is enough to your ratio. So let's get down on the stovetop and show what I got started here. I got cast iron pan. This is going to have to go in the oven to finish, so I want something that's oven safe. Therefore, we're using my cast iron. I got the burner on. Yeah, just a little bit of oil because we're using venison. Gonna spread some of that oil around, make sure it's got a good coating. And you're going to add the venison, about medium heat. Get that started. This is a recipe that I'm modifying that I saw on Hillbilly Kitchen YouTube channel with Becky as the host. It's an old Depression era meal, not error, and real simple. It's meat, potatoes, and cooking liquid. And again, the ratios are up to you. If you want more meat, you just put in less potatoes. If you want to stretch it, if you're trying to serve a lot of people with less meat, you can add more potatoes. Season it, pardon my reach. Get some salt. And black pepper. And more black pepper. And more black pepper because it's not coming out. There we go. Now I feel it grinding. Like I said, you want this in an oven safe dish. So if you have a stainless steel, you could use that. Teflon, some Teflons can go in the oven, but you have to be careful because some Teflons have, or I should say no stick has the plastic handles, and a lot of that can't go in the oven. To this, like I said, the basis of the meal is meat, it's going to be potatoes, and it's going to be cooking liquid. I'll explain each as we get to there. The smaller, if you want it more like a breakfast hash, which is kind of what we're going for, the ground meat works fine, or you'd have to dice down some stew meat. If you want a bigger, meatier, sit-down, chunky meat and potato, you'd leave larger chunks of steak or stew meat or whatever, and you'd want larger chunks of potato. For ours, like I said, we're going for like a breakfast hash, so I did a smaller dice. To this, we add onion. How much? It doesn't matter. However much you want. This one is just going to be a simple hash. And by simple, it means I'm not going to go outside of the basis of the meat, potatoes, and cooking liquid. That's all it's going to get is the onion as far as an extra ingredient. I've done this before with ground beef. I think I actually used ground venison. But I did bacon, ground venison, mushrooms, cooked the mushrooms down, and onions. And that was what I had going first. Like I say, this is just a base recipe. You can add whatever you want to it. You could add some green pepper to this. For your liquid, cooking liquid is again up to you. If you want to go with tomato juice, you could probably do it with tomato juice if you want something a little bit more tomatoey flavor, more vegetable flavor. Or you can use just water. We have mixed up some beef bouillon broth. That's what we're going to use this time. I like using beer in mine. It adds a little bit of flavor to it. The beer cooks off and you end up dry in the bottom. If you're using a greasy type of meat product, you're going to want to use, you want to drain it. If you're using a heavy, like a 75-25 or 70-30 or anything less than 80-20, but venison is rather lean, so we're not going to have to worry about draining it. Chicken you wouldn't have to drain. But but you would have to add a little bit extra oil for that for sure, to keep it from sticking. This doesn't have to be browned as in Maillard effect, you just want to get the meat mostly cooked through. The oven is preheating at 350 degrees for pretty much any meat you throw in the oven. As far as your choice of potatoes, again, that's personal choice. I've used russets. I've used, my personal choice is Yukons, the gold potatoes, yellow potatoes. They're kind of in between. Your russet potato is more like a fluffy baked potato, good for french fries, good for baked potatoes. Your red potatoes are a starchy, waxy potato. They stay together. You boil them and they stay together in a clump. If you boil a russet potato, it kind of disintegrates, falls apart. So if you're doing potato salads, you wouldn't want to use a russet, you'd want to use a red. Pot roasts use a lot of red potatoes too because they tend to stay together. The Yukons, the yellows, are kind of a mix in between. You can get away with the yellow as a baked potato. You can get away with the yellow as a boiled potato that stays together. So I like the yellows. Now this is for my dad, so I peel the potatoes. If I'm doing this for myself, I would have left the potato peels on the potato and just diced them up. Okay, the meat is mostly cooked. And like I say, it's going to go into the oven for close to an hour. Add potatoes, whatever ratio you want. Give it a little bit of a stir. Now these potatoes are unsalted, so this may be a dish that you have to add extra salt to in the cooking, or you're going to be salting at the table. Either way, you know, if you want to salt less in the cooking process and let people decide how much salt they want at the table, that's probably the best way to go. If you're cooking for yourself and you know how much you like it, go right to your desired amount right away so it all gets cooked through. Okay, so kind of level it off, get it even, and I'm going to expose just a little bit of the side here so you can see what I'm doing. If you want a thicker gravy in this, you want to add, when you cook it in oil, you want to add a little more oil, or don't drain the whatever meat you have in there. Leave a little bit of oil. At this point, before you put the potatoes in, you don't want to coat it with flour and cook it through. You get the flour cooked in, and then when you add your liquid and put it in the oven, it'll thicken it up as a gravy. This one, we're not looking for a gravy, so I didn't put any flour in it. This is a beef broth powder mix with a little bit of water. I can pour it over here because eventually it's going to find the level bottom, and if, I don't know if you can see that, but it's coming through down here. You don't want it to come all the way up. You don't want to boil the meat, but you want to add enough liquid about maybe a third of the way up the pan, quarter to a third, no more than a half. And if you wanted to, you could actually throw a lid on this and cook it on top of the stove. You wouldn't even have to put it in the oven. But it's just as easy to do in the oven. Don't have to do any extra cooking on potatoes on the stove top, so we'll shut that off. Give it a coating or covering of foil. Come on, quit sticking to me. And then I'll whack that sucker in the oven. And time, according to this, is 3:40. We're gonna go at least around 45 minutes. You might want to check. So 4:25. We'll come back and check it around there. You want the potatoes to be tender. You hit them with a fork and they kind of crush. And you want to make sure that all that liquid, for the most part, is boiled off. You may have to take the top off if it's still a bit moist and just let it evaporate. But we'll come back and we'll check that in about 35 to 45 minutes. And we have it out of the oven. It's been, actually, I let it go about an hour and 5 minutes. Potatoes are still a little bit undercooked. Give it a little stir here. There is a little bit of liquid left in the bottom. If you leave this sit, it will incorporate back into it and get soaked up. But that is just your basic of the most basic meat and potatoes. And for me, a little bit of salt that comes out extremely fast. And a little bit of black pepper. What also is really good on this is not ketchup. My mom puts ketchup on ketchup. That's what she'll eat. I like, it's kind of like ketchup. It's the Tabasco brand Sriracha sauce. It's not a normal hot sauce Tabasco. It's actually made Sriracha, and it's a different shaped bottle than the glass Tabascos. But that is fantastic on everything. Love it on pizza. Love it on eggs. So for me, if I'm going to sit down to, like I say, a simple plain meal, that's as simple as you get. Meat and potatoes. You want to stretch it out. I could have put more potatoes in there or less meat in there and stretched out the dollar if I wanted to, but it's venison, so basically, you know, hunting it is free. Well, not how much we spend on hunting, but that's delicious. Change it up. You want chicken and potatoes for your hash. That's what my girlfriend likes. If you want to do bigger chunks of stew meat with bigger potatoes, and then you can put in chunks of celery and carrots and onion, bigger chunks. And for your liquid on that, you could put in some tomato sauce, put that in the oven, let it go, and guess what you have? You have a stew. If you want to slice your potatoes, instead of dicing them, lay them out there, put in some ham, put in some milk and cream, melted down with some flour, and then you do some more potatoes and some more ham and some more milk and cream, and layer it and put a top on. You've got an au gratin. This is a method more than it is a recipe. You can make a hash, you can make au gratins or gratines, you can make stews, you can make chilies. If you can do this, you can make a whole plethora of meals. And I'm gonna do some meals based on this in the future, where I take the same basic principle, meat and potatoes, add your carrots, add your tomatoes, and make a stew out of it, or show you making it a potatoes au gratin. And learn this one easy, simple technique, and you can have a lot of different meals. Now, my dad came home from dialysis, wanted to lay down for a bit, so I'm gonna let this cool and show you what you can use this for. I make a big batch of this when I make it because I want these leftovers, and I'll show you exactly what I want these leftovers for towards the end here. So I'm gonna finish this up. Maybe you can get a few more spoonfuls, and when my dad's ready to wake up, I'll cook him some hash, and I'll slide an egg on top of his so you can see what it looks like as a breakfast hash. And we'll have that coming up in just a few seconds. But I'm gonna get back to finishing this. Alright, now that I got my food in me, it's time to make some supper for my dad. Just put it in a Tupperware, it's cooled down a little bit. In a pan, use a little bit of margarine or butter or oil. I'll drop in a little bit of the hash. And over in the other pan, go ahead and start that as well. And when that gets melted and that gets a little bit fried, I'll come back to the video.
Feel better after your nap?
Alright, this is the inspiration for cooking it this way. This is what my dad likes, is roast beef hash. Covering up the name of the company because I don't want to give them credit. It's just roast beef and potatoes. So that's basically what we got. We got venison, and it's been in the oven, so it's roasted, and potatoes. So when that gets cooked, can get a little bit of brown on it. Alright, get that going. Got the egg going over here. Do this kind of sunny side up because he likes the runny yolk. Gets down in there, and let it cook for a few more minutes, and I'll show you when it's done. Okay, time to serve. Got just a little bit of brown going on here, a little bit of crispness. That makes it into your, like a hash brown kind of hash. Right there. This egg looked like it got away from me a little bit, so it's not going to have the runny egg like he likes, but it's still an egg. Served on top, and that's it. That's a traditional English American hash egg. Simple. I say it's leftovers from that. Slide an egg on top, and there you go. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or if you have your own version of a hash, put the recipe down in the comments below. And I will see you guys in the next video.